Welcome back to another episode of Lost in the Shuffle. I am Peter, and I'm here with a special guest today. We got Jack from Daily Dose of Baseball. What's up, Jack?
What's going on, brother? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, Jack. I found your stuff on TikTok. I love TikTok, and you were put in my algorithm because you do a lot of baseball stuff. You do a lot of questions and controversial issues that you talk about. You give your opinion on those. So I thought it'd be a great idea to bring you in and we can have our own discussion about it.
Sounds good.
So Jack, where'd your love for baseball come from? Because you started this account, you have, on TikTok, you have a lot of followers, you're growing very rapidly, and it's Daily Dose of Baseball. So what is that? Where'd you get that love for baseball from?
My love for baseball probably started when I was like 5 years old, and like as most huge like lifelong baseball fans probably get their love from, they started playing baseball when they were really young. I started playing baseball when I was, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And then I stopped for a while and I started back up again when I was in middle school. And then I played through high school, and I've just had a huge love for the game of baseball. I've been trying to learn more about the analytics side of baseball because I'm not the most informed about that. But I'm a huge Orioles fan. I've grown up watching, like Adam Jones, Chris Davis, Manny Machado when he was on the Orioles, JJ Hardy, guys like them. And I fell in love with Camden Yards, and my love for baseball has just grown from there. And yeah, I just started on TikTok because I saw a lot of, baseball TikTokers making like incredible content. And, I just figured, why not? Might as well just see what happens. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, well, you're doing great. What I like is you will say, here is a controversial issue that might piss a lot of people off. And it's just you there. I thought it would be great if, you could have someone to debate that with, because I think you could see a lot of both sides on everything. And I love when people have opposing ideas, because I think that's where you learn the most, is when two people disagree on things and you say why you disagree, and coming from two different sides as opposed to just, yeah, I agree with that. So let's get into some stuff, Jack. Okay. I went through your TikTok and I looked at a lot of your, the questions that you had. So first one I saw here, we're going to say Astros World Series was legit because it was a league-wide issue in regards to the sign stealing thing. So what is your position on that?
My position on that. Oh, we're starting off with a good one. All right. My position on that is that I definitely don't think the Astros should keep their title. I mean, as like most baseball fans, I mean, obviously they're going to have their title. They won it in 2017, so I guess there's really not much we can do. I mean, we could, as baseball fans, we could say as much as we want that, they stole signs, and they quite literally did. I mean, John Boy Media first broke that news, and when I first saw it, it was clear as day, and I'm not quite sure how no one else saw it beforehand. And considering it was used in the World Series, that's just disappointing. Honestly, it doesn't matter if it's a league-wide issue at that point. I mean, like, if like a team like the Orioles were to do it, no one would blink an eye. Like, no one would care. But if a team that's like contending for a World Series did it, and they didn't necessarily need to do it in order to win a ton of games, because they probably would have won like maybe 10 less games if they didn't do it, because they were a great team that year anyway. But the fact that they did it and they were contending for a World Series, I think changes things a little bit. You know what I mean? Because if like a non-contending team did it, it wouldn't matter.
It's almost like if you see like a homeless person stealing from a store, you're like, oh, like they probably need it, as opposed to someone who's really rich stealing from a store. And you're like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you stealing? You have the money.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, you're good. You're good, man.
You have the talent. Like you said, like if you saw the Baltimore Orioles doing it, yeah, it'd be like, oh, poor them. Like they're looking for all the help they can get,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, also too, is I think they got off a lot easier than they should have too, right? If you're gonna be the face of a scandal, I mean, what were the repercussions that came with that? And exactly kind of like what you said is, oh, you're gonna take it away. You already won it. Like you already had your celebration. That's already done. What you can take away the physical trophy, I guess, but I mean, what are we doing? You're not losing anything. None of them have. Right. And look at Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa is going to get probably a $300 million contract. So how is that even right? Like he's one of the poster child for it that was behind all this, and he is being rewarded a couple years later with a huge contract.
Exactly. And at the other side of it, how do you punish those guys? Like, how do you directly punish the players who benefited from it? Because you could say everyone benefited from it. I mean, people are going to say that Altuve didn't. I'm not so sure about that, because People are saying he might have used the buzzer. People are saying he didn't use the buzzer. And then the controversy of why didn't he take his shirt off when he was celebrating? He like kept it on. He was like, "Oh, I keep my shirt on." But if he didn't use the buzzer, like I don't know. There's just so much. There's so many layers on top of that issue. Where if you sit down and you really talk about it, there really is no way to punish all of them because there's just, in my opinion, there's just not an adequate punishment for it. I mean, the manager and their general manager were both fired. They're both still in the league. Lunau is probably going to return to the Astros at some point if he already didn't. I mean, if he already did, because I think he was suspended for a year. AJ Hinch is on the Tigers, so it's not like he got punished really hard, like that much. And the Tigers weren't even a bad team last year.
Right.
Like they were a very like middle of the pack team, so it's not like he's suffering that much. I mean, obviously, he's not on a winning organization right now, but they really didn't suffer many repercussions other than their top two minds on the organization being fired.
And they also got out of it too because 2020 nobody was at baseball games. So it's like
exactly.
if you're not going to handle it in-house like Rob Manfred should have done, he wanted cooperation. So he gave everybody a free pass. Everyone gets a free pass. Just tell me how you did it and nothing will happen. Okay, so now you didn't handle it in-house. Now guess who's going to handle it? The pitchers and other teams. Now you're going to get it our way. And that's even like a more dangerous kind of way as opposed to saying like you're suspended for a year or whatever have you. That could have been all avoided. But now you got fans, players taking it into their own hands. And it's like their kind of justice,
Right. Right. Now they're going down the route of let's just injure the Astros, and honestly, like I guess hitting Altuve, it's like a momentary, fuck yeah. Can I curse? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to curse from that.
Yeah, it's free. Go ahead. You're good to go.
Okay. It's like you can hit Altuve as much as you want, but in the end, like you'll get like a momentary, fuck yeah, we finally got him. But like I didn't really do anything. Like they're not going to receive any punishment. If anything, the pitchers are going to receive punishment for hitting them, even though, the Astros arguably did something much, much worse. But it also comes down to now there's not many of those returning Astros on that active roster in 2022. There's maybe like 5 left. And those are maybe like the core guys.
Yeah.
And you can't really blame the pitchers. You can't on the Astros. You can't blame anybody other than the offense, except there's not much of an offense left.
Right.
Like at that point, it just kind of fades out of relevancy because it already happened and there's not much else you can do at that point.
Right. And that's the thing too, is most of the people that were there, like you said, are gone. So it's kind of the moment has already passed. And that's just kind of is what it is. And it's just going to be one of those blemishes on their record. And I think that follows them. Hopefully that follows them with them, because I've seen a lot of other players, banned for a lot less. I mean, in my mind, Pete Rose, who, gambled and stuff, and he won't find his way in the Hall of Fame because of that. So that is that. So that's first issue. How about this one? There should be a universal DH.
I agree. I think there should be. I mean, they tried it out in 2020, and I'd say it worked pretty well. You could definitely see like a bit of a more balance between the American League and the National League, because the only difference between the two leagues is pitchers hit and there's a designated spot for hitters. So I think if you balance it, that'll do something. But then on the other end, because I see both sides to this issue, rather, the only difference between the American League and the National League is in one league, pitchers hit, and the other one, there's a designated hitter. So like, what's the difference between the two leagues then? I think it's safe to say a lot of old heads and a lot of older baseball fans would really love pitchers to hit, but there's so many injuries that come from pitchers hitting. Like we saw a Ryan Vogelsong of like a few years ago, like a long, like 7 or 8 years ago, have his career end because he got hit by a pitch in the head. And he was a good major league pitcher. We saw Masahiro Tanaka pull both of his hamstrings running when he was hitting, like both of his hamstrings. We saw what else did we see? We really see a lot of other major injuries other than that. I'm sure there's other ones that I'm forgetting, but the point still stands. There's a lot of pitcher injuries that come from that. But at the same time, do we want to sacrifice Madison Bumgarner crushing home runs? Like we loved seeing that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't even say the injuries is that big of a part of it. I think it's just a part of, if you are trying to improve the game and grow the game, nobody in general, I would say 80-something% of people and fans do not care to see pitchers hit, right? There is that
Okay.
10% or whatever. There, yeah, you do want to see a Madison Bumgarner bomb or the one time Bartolo Colon hits a home run, you know, but 90% after that, it's like, do I want to see Kyle Hendricks at bat trying to bunt or swinging? It's like, no, I don't. I'd rather have a premier bat in there to elevate the game, more hits, more home runs, whatever that is. So, and I am a baseball purist. Like I like baseball at its purest form. I don't like a lot of change. Besides this rule, I'm okay with. This doesn't bother me. Other rules about, the 3 pitcher minimum, a clock on the pitcher, those things really piss me off. I don't want to see those implemented in baseball at all. But when it comes to a universal DH, I'm okay with that. I think that doesn't really affect too much. Pitchers should pitch. They shouldn't have to worry about hitting. But then, at least you're going to get a higher quality of a full lineup out of 9 batters,
Right. And I think what you touched on with the 3 batter minimum rule for the pitcher, that rule, in my opinion, the only major thing that did to change the game was eliminate the lefty specialist, because we don't see any in the league anymore. We don't see any guys like Oliver Perez anymore. He retired. We don't see any guys like Adam Kolarek, who literally was just in to face lefties. We don't see that anymore. So if anything, that rule change killed a lot of jobs for pitchers.
Yeah.
So I really do think that rule did much more like harm than good, in my opinion.
And you're taking you're taking moves from managers that they can't make. So, you know, when you say, okay, well, how many righties or lefties do we have coming up? And, he's got to see X amount of batters. Like that stuff is just, that's not strategy. The whole baseball has a strategic point to it, right? And when you take that away, you're losing that strategy, which is like you're losing a part of the game.
I agree 100% with that. Yeah.
So we agree with that. Universal DH. Boom. We're okay with it.
That.
How about this? How about Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame / can you be in the Hall of Fame if you are accused or found of using steroids?
All right, let me hear your take on this first, because I have a very interesting one, to say the least.
Okay. So Barry Bonds, in my opinion, is one of the greatest hitters ever in baseball. I don't think you can tell, like I've said this before, you can't tell the story of baseball. You can't talk about the greats of baseball without mentioning Barry Bonds. Okay. There is an era in baseball that is marred by steroids, and it's very muddled. Who was proven to use it? Who was accused of using it? What report said this? What report said that? Who tested positive for what? Very muddled. Okay. So we understand that there's a lot of players. I mean, Melky Cabrera, who's still currently playing. I mean, there's a lot of players that got snuck under the radar because they weren't huge names. I am okay with letting players into the Hall of Fame at the premier level, the Roger Clements, the Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, even, because, and then you go back to those seasons after the 94 lockout, steroids, whether you want to believe it or not, steroids saved baseball. When we had the McGuire Sosa home run race, and I'm from Chicago, and we got to see Sammy Sosa, the run, he's got 57, he's got 60, he's got 58. Like that was so exciting for baseball fans, and even casual baseball fans who didn't watch baseball, brought them to the game, brought them to the ball field. That helped bring back baseball. So I think that was almost like a necessary part of baseball history. And I am okay with putting him in the Hall of Fame because he's one of the greatest hitters of all time.
I agree with those points. Honestly, like you said, you can't tell the story of Major League Baseball without mentioning how incredible Barry Bonds was. And in my opinion, because it's quite widely known that he used steroids. I mean, take a look at a picture of him when he was on the Pirates versus when he was on the Giants.
As a leadoff hitter, right?
Yeah. Like his head looked like a pumpkin. Like his head grew so large in size. Like physically, he was a monster. And like that's not from natural training, because he was like 27,
right?
Like at that point. So that just doesn't happen. And it's just crazy to me how incredible of a player he was. So now I'm not so sure. Like I don't think he should belong in the Hall of Fame, because again, steroids really weren't cracked down on until like the 2000s, like after the report came out in 2003, when we found out David Ortiz failed a drug test, but he's probably going to get into the Hall of Fame. So there's like double standards there. Like even though Ortiz failed a test, never served a suspension, by the way, do we let Bonds in? Because if you don't let Bonds in, you can't let Ortiz in, because then there's just double standards there. And the vote, I mean, we all know how bad the voters are.
Mhm.
That like advanced stat. How do I say this without sounding rude? I don't want to say advanced stat nerds because I just feel like that's just demeaning. What do I say? Advanced stat enthusiasts. We'll go with.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a good word for it. They believe that Garrett Cole should have won the Cy Young Award instead of Robbie Ray, but the only reason that Robbie Ray won was for a stunt, in my opinion, because Garrett Cole, we know he was using foreign substances, but then again, a lot of the pitchers in the league were. John Means on the Orioles was during his no hitter, and I'm ashamed of that. Like I'm sad because I found that out recently. Like when I found that out, I thought he got his no hitter fair and square. Nope, apparently not.
But
so
is
at
it
that point, it's like, but bringing it back full circle, I don't think we should let Bonds in the Hall of Fame because the game is a little bit different now. We don't want players who use steroids getting in the Hall of Fame because if we let Bonds in, we got to let everyone else in. And I don't think that the voters are going to want to let everyone else in. They want to let the best in, and that's Bonds. I don't think they're going to want to allow Sosa or McGuire or the other guys who use steroids to get in, like Roger Clemens, because it's widely known that he probably used steroids. He never failed a test, but like everyone used it back then.
Well, when you say you got to let everybody in, I don't think that's true. I obviously think it's the best of the best, and Barry Bonds is in a league of his own, and I would put Roger Clemens in there too. Nobody has more Cy Youngs than Roger Clemens. So I think those two, even if you let them in, it doesn't mean I don't think that means you have to let Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire in because I don't think their careers were as prolific as Barry Bonds is. And I think we could agree that very good. They put up a lot of numbers, played for a lot of years and put up a lot of home runs and RBIs, and they're up there on the list for sure. But yeah, so I don't think that is just a gateway to saying, well, if he goes in, then everyone's going to go in. You know what I mean? Like when I would go to a teacher in college and it's like, oh, is there any chance like I could work for extra credit? And they're like, well, if I got to give you extra credit, then I got to give everyone else. And I'm like, no, you don't, because I'm asking you. I'm asking for extra credit. Everyone else isn't. I came to you, so you don't have to give it to everyone. You can give it to me, you know?
Interesting perspective on that. I'm in college. I should use that advice.
Yeah, right. When they say, well, if I give it to you, I got to give it. No, you don't, because I'm asking. Nobody else is asking you. So
right. And I think I might have misspoke. I don't think that they should get in because, like you said, their careers were really good. They had very productive major league careers. But when I say open the door for them to go in, I mean like you got to give them the chance to actually get in this time. Because I think they were written off pretty quickly that no, they're not getting the Hall of Fame. No, get them off the ballot. They're not getting in. So I think we need to put them back on the ballot, honestly. If we're going to let Bonds in, or at least wait for the next like Veterans Committee or like some other random committee, because there's so many to let them into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, they can't go back on the ballot. They already spent 10 years on the ballot. But if we let Bonds in, do we let A-Rod in? Because I think we do.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
But I don't think the voters would. And I'll tell you why, because it's an honors game. Because baseball, in their opinion, baseball is a game of honor. And they want, the best guys to get in, the guys who are like fan favorites. And if you're a New York Yankees fan, A-Rod was a fan favorite, easily, no matter how big of a dickhead he was, because he really was one. He was not a nice person. I mean, he's a great television host now. Like he's a great TV personality. I can't even say I hate him. And I'm an Orioles fan saying that. But the voters, I don't think, are going to put A-Rod in because he actually failed a test. And we know Bonds used steroids, but he never technically failed a test, even though he did obstruct with evidence in a court case about his steroid use. But I don't know. The voters are very inconsistent.
And that's the thing, too, about the voting. And I think we see that across all sports is, I mean, we saw this you probably saw with Aaron Rodgers and the Chicago writer Hub Arkush, who's saying Aaron Rodgers is the biggest jerk in the league, and he shouldn't win MVP. And it's like, this isn't a humanitarian award. Okay. That's what the Walter Payton Award is for. Those are people that do incredible, extraordinary things off the field. This award is for the most valuable player. That means everything that happens in between the sidelines, nothing else. So, and I think these voters are very old, outdated. And like you said, if they let I just don't think the voters, they don't care about, it's everything else that is associated with your production. I don't know who gets these votes and like why they get them. Some of these people, it's just like, you are just proving, I don't know. They're just very old people, I think, just old white guys who are just like, this is how it should be and nothing else. You know what I mean? Very not open-minded.
Right.
I think that needs to be passed along to a new generation of voters.
Right. But my other thing is that if we're going to pass on to another generation of voters, they need to be unbiased 100%, because if they're biased at all, then it's just, then there's really not much of a change, in my opinion. Doesn't matter the age of the voters, doesn't matter like if they're like old white guys. If they're still just as biased as they are, it makes no difference whatsoever.
Right.
So we got to make sure that they're actually like unbiased voters. And obviously there's no such thing as unbiased, but at least appear as unbiased as possible to just appease the masses and appease the fans.
And what I wanted to touch on earlier, what you brought up, you said you were ashamed that John Means used spider tack or whatever kind of substance he used. So is it cheating if everybody's doing it?
Oh, now I've had this conversation with a bunch of my friends before. So
because we've seen the spin rate go down on a lot of pitchers when that was released, right? They started tracking. Let's look at spin rate, right? Let's look at spin rate and control and things like that. So if everybody was doing it, because from what I've heard, I forgot what player said it, but he said this was something that was passed down from older generations of pitchers that said, this is what you do. You kind of mark it up here, add some water, whatever it is. And this is how you get a feel for the ball. So that's what I've heard that from a former player. Also, too, if it gives you more control and makes it less dangerous, because sometimes we've seen balls get away from pitchers. It's a little too slick and might, that 2-seam might run towards someone's head. It could be a little bit more dangerous too. So like I said, if everyone's doing, is it cheating?
And I guess the answer in that case is no, because in order for someone to be considered cheating, they need to put themselves above the competition in that sense by creating an unfair playing field. So if everyone's doing it, it's not creating an unfair playing field if everyone's doing it. So I guess the answer to that hypothetical is no, but they are still getting an advantage over other pitchers and other offensive players at that point, other position players. So I guess to the position players, yes, it is, because they have nothing to cheat against pitchers unless they're stealing signs. And we saw how that went with the Houston Astros. Like Altuve got hit, I think 20 times that season after he was. I could be completely wrong, but he got hit a lot after the cheating scandal came out. So there's no way for the hitters to put themselves at that same playing field as the pitchers. So to the other pitchers, no, it's not cheating, but to other hitters, it is, because they can't put themselves on that same playing field. Now they're at a disadvantage.
Right. Like it's not hard enough to already hit a moving 96-mile-an-hour baseball. Now it's like
now hit it with more movement.
Right. Exactly.
More rotations. Exactly. So at that point, what do you do? Because I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh my God, I hate that. But like you can't do anything at that point to really put yourself on that same playing field. You really can't.
Yeah, I saw that they said it also gives you more control too. And I agree with everything that you said. But I also think too about like safety for pitchers, having more control of the ball. Kind of some of them were getting kind of close inside or whatever. So it all goes hand in hand, I guess. But it's just an interesting idea, right?
Right. And then when you talk about control about pitchers, it's a very cliche line that I think of, but I think it also does apply. If you can't, as a major league pitcher, and I say this as a non-athletic college student, like I'm not a professional athlete.
Wait, you're not?
You didn't know that?
Yeah.
You didn't know that? I'm not like 6'5" and ripped. No, unfortunately not. No, I've dreamt a lot about being that. I just don't think it's for me, honestly.
Same,
Somebody
Jack.
out there saying, you know what? No.
Same.
But my thing is that if you can't control your pitches, and if you have a genuine fear of hitting position players when you're pitching, and I remembered my line now. That's what I was going to say. You shouldn't be in the league. Right. Like if you can't command your pitches at least somewhat, because I'm not expecting you to walk like nobody, because obviously that's not possible unless you're like Clayton Kershaw and walk like 15 batters or 20 or like 15 to 30 batters a year, give or take.
Yeah,
which is ridiculous that he does that. You should not be in the league, because if there is a huge risk of someone getting hit in the head or someone having a concussion when you're pitching,
Right.
you shouldn't be on a major league mound. You need to learn how to command your pitches.
No, you're right. 100%. Okay. So I think that was good for Barry Bonds, Hall of Fame, steroids, and spider tech. How about this? And this is coming. So I am a lefty and I am a dead pull hitter. So this really hits home for me. Should the shift be banned?
Oh, okay. I touched about this issue a little bit in some of my videos, but I haven't really gotten into full depth with it. My answer is no, but it should be amended. How many infielders you can have on each side of the field, in my opinion, because there's a reason why. It's sad. There's a reason why there's a shift called the Manny shift now, because Manny Machado would play in shallow right field on the Padres whenever he'd be in a shift against lefties who are dead pull hitters. That's just ridiculous. I think that there should be 2 infielders on each side of the field, like there should be. Where they can play should vary, but the shift itself, I think, in many ways, has definitely made the game of baseball a little bit more interesting. Because, and I'll tell you why, from a visual aspect, because when you see 2 infielders on each side of the field, you know, it's like that's where they're supposed to be: first base, second base on the right side, and third base and shortstop on the left side. If you put 4 infielders on one side of the field and leave the left side open, you just bunt,
Right.
you know. But at the same time, and I've seen a lot of baseball fans say this, but I don't think they understand how hard this is to do. Learn to hit against the shift.
Yeah, just hit it the opposite way, right? Yeah.
That's not as easy. That's not really not as easy as it sounds, considering most pitchers are throwing 95 plus gas with incredible off-speed pitches. Like, that's not easy to do.
I had a friend say the same thing to me. He's like, why don't they just hit it to the opposite side? And I'm like, bro, it is moving at a very incredible rate of speed, and it's moving up and down and side to side. He's like, dude, if you're a pro, you should be able to do that. I'm just like, you sound so ignorant right now. He's a hockey player. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that. But
right.
I am okay with it. I think that as a manager, you should be able to place your players wherever you want to on the field. Traditionally, there is, shortstop, second base. Everyone has a position where they should be, but against certain players, hitters, I think that you should be able to line up defensively however you want. Just like in football, if I want to run, a stacked box as opposed to man-to-man coverage or whatever, I should be able to align that however I so please. And if you take advantage of that by laying down a push bunt towards a shortstop, third base side, whatever, you should try and work on that, or you should try and do that. I think Max Muncy did that recently. Someone else. I mean, you need to learn how to adjust to that then, because then they will start playing you true then, right? So I just think as a manager, you should be able to play your players wherever you like on the field.
And I like that perspective, and I agree with a lot of it. It's just, it comes to a point where you're having like 4 outfielders, like when your third baseman is playing shallow right field and you have like a regular right fielder. Like I saw, when I started thinking, should we ban the shift? The moment that really caused me to start thinking that was when I was watching a game. I was watching a San Diego Padres broadcast, and a guy hit a ball down the right field line, and I saw Manny Machado fielded in the right field corner, a third baseman in the shift. Like, just saying that sounds so ridiculous.
Right.
It really does. Like, saying it just sounds like no, that couldn't have been Manny, right? Oh my God, that is him.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell is he? It's like, at what point does it come to like it's just pure ridiculousness? I don't even know if that's a word. I think it's a word. But like,
they got a show about it, right? Rob Dyrdek, ridiculousness.
Oh, there you go. It's just like, it's absurd. It really is. I think certain shifts should be banned, but the shift itself should not be.
Mm-hmm. So you're more so about just, like you said, amending it or putting some parameters around how egregious it could be.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect.
I don't think we should like take it out of the game, because it is a huge part of the game.
Right. I mean, that's why they have those cards in their hats, right? Where am I lining up defensively? What are his tendencies? Things like that. And I think, that's a part of the strategy of baseball that I appreciate.
Yeah, I could say the same thing.
So my biggest, I saw one of your videos that said, What is your biggest I don't know, gripe with baseball, or like what would you change about baseball, something like that? But my biggest thing is umpires should have a maximum of 10 years to umpire, and then you're done. I don't think there should be old umpires, and for this reason, as you get older, your eyes get worse. And that is just a fact. That is science.
That is a fact.
Your eyes do not get better or improve or stay the same. They consistently get worse and worse and worse. And I think we see that a lot. Angel Hernandez, what's his name? Turkey neck, Joe West. So
he actually just retired.
He did. Thank God.
Thank God.
I just think there should be a term limit, just like there should be a term limit for a lot of positions and jobs in this country. And umpiring should be one of them. What are your thoughts?
I actually agree with you. I haven't really thought about that take at all. Actually, that's a brand new take. No, I completely agree with that. Keep the umpiring position young, keep it fresh, because nobody wants Joe West in the league. Nobody wants Angel Hernandez in the league. And I'm not a major league affiliate. I'm not like partnered with MLB. I'm not like one of those. I'm not in the creator class. So I can say this freely.
Right.
Nobody wants old umpires in the league, because at the end of the day, they do contribute to a lot of why baseball fans hate umpires.
Mm-hmm.
Like them themselves existing is a huge reason as to why baseball isn't fun for a lot of fans. And there have been so many bad calls.
Well, not even the bad calls. When they make the game about themselves, I think that's when the hate comes in too, right? Madison Bumgarner missed. He got it was called ball, and Madison's looking at him, and Joe West. They just had a staring competition, like these kind of things where they want to impose their will or their power into the game. Right. Yeah, and it's like, listen, you're not a part of the game. You're here to call balls and strikes and make calls.
You're here to officiate the game. You're not playing. If you wanted to play, you should have played when you were younger.
And that's the thing that pisses me off, or that bothers me, is like when they try to put themselves in front of the game. It's like, dude, nobody cares about you. No, quit trying to make it about you.
Exactly. 100%. And umpires themselves have been a huge okay. Just as a history part of the game, umpires have blown so many horrible calls. Like the perfect game in Detroit. That we all remember that, I think. If you're like an older baseball fan, if you know, you know. Armando Galarraga, I think.
Galarraga.
I think that was his name. I don't think Armando was his first name. I don't remember what his first name
was. No, I believe you're right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, then my baseball history mind still works.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a perfect game. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, and he blew a call first base, and the umpire was in tears after the game. Like, he knows he messed up the call, but he can't do anything about it.
It is Armando Galarraga.
Okay, cool. I'm glad I got that right. I would have really been annoyed if I got that wrong.
Yeah.
And then another instance in which umpires were just blatantly failing, and it's a good thing that reviews were actually part of the game then, was in the ALDS between the Red Sox and the Yankees. And remember how many calls Angel Hernandez blew?
Mm-hmm.
How many they had to go to review? Like 4 or 5 were overturned just by Angel Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you see stuff like that, it's unbelievably terrible for the game of baseball. It's embarrassing. It really is. And I'm not so sure if it has to do with like the umpires themselves being horrible, their judgments being horrible, or if it's their vision. Because we can't have like 65, 75-year-old umpires behind the plate calling balls and strikes when they have less than half a second to react.
Right.
Like, we need to have like either robotic umpires, or like the like what they're doing in the low minors, where they're where there's a machine calling balls and strikes, and it relays it to the umpire and they can call it.
Mm-hmm.
So at least they can keep umpires in the game, like the human aspect in the game. Because if you do remove umpires from the game, I know I'm ranting here and I apologize.
No.
But if you keep umpires in the game, you're saving a lot of jobs, because a lot of umpires do rely on umpiring full time for their income. And it's at like the top level of the game, because I'm sure minor league umpires make like dirt nothing, like the players do. That's a whole other issue. But if you remove umpires, then it changes the game like significantly. But if you keep umpires in the game, it keeps at least one part of baseball, the same, even when the rest of the game is changing rapidly per season.
I like having umpires in the game because I think baseball represents life to me, and life isn't always fair. And balls and strikes, sometimes balls are called strikes, and sometimes strikes are called balls. And I like that. I like that baseball is or was an imperfect game. There is no, before the replay, before all that stuff, I loved that it is a imperfect game judged by imperfect people. And that element really just kind of resonates as why I think baseball is the greatest sport of all time. And I just love it so much because there is that element of error, and that is life, and that is a part of the game and things like that. Sometimes you get a bad call, and how are you going to respond to that? So I do like that element in there. And then as to the umpires, I think it's important to get some fresh blood into umpiring, like younger guys, serve a decade. That 10 years is that's a good career. 10 years and then you're done. Pump up some new blood. I don't need to see, the same umpire since I was 15 years old. Get some new blood in there. It should be a turnover. There should be, that kind of, I think that would be good for the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I agree. And I must say, I really do like your point about imperfect people, umpiring an imperfect game. That's a very new perspective to me as well. Thanks for bringing that up. I love that.
Yeah, that's something my father taught to me, and just kind of when I grew up, it was just I just think baseball is a good metaphor for life. And my dad always said, it's an imperfect game played by or judged by imperfect people. And you get some calls and sometimes you don't get calls. Remember in Little League because I played first base, I'd get a toss from my shortstop down the line, and I'd swipe and pretend I got him on the head, and I'd start running to the dugout, and the umpire would be like, "You're out," and I totally whiffed. A part of the game is like selling it. Did you sell it? Like I learned how to do that.
Right.
The tag, got him, or whatever it is. Like, you got to sell the play because
fake it till you make it.
Right. When you're in those younger leagues or whatever, they don't got replays, and they're just, young kids calling the game. But if you can sell that, like, you'll get the calls to go your way. So I think that's fun. That's a part of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That's a new perspective right there. But at the other side, because there's always two sides to a coin.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of the coin is, do you want there to still be awfully missed calls? Because at one point, how many missed calls do you have to get in order for there to be a change? And we've seen so many missed calls throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just with a few of the ones that I mentioned, how many of those are we going to get before there's a huge change? Because baseball is an imperfect game. Imperfect people are going to call the game. But how imperfect can they get until there's an actual change? You know what I mean? And I think that's why a lot of baseball fans were inquiring about that. And I do understand their perspective, but I don't think baseball's ready to make that change yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Unfortunately.
We got our last one here, Jack. We have,
all right. Should
bat flipping be banned / what do you think about celebrating in general?
Oh my God, no. Oh, no. We can't. Okay. No. I feel like the only people that actually have issues with bat flipping are just older baseball fans.
Because there
watch the game play the right way, in their opinion.
Right. There are people that do complain about it, though.
There are people who do complain about it. Yeah, there are. But then again, that's their problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because everyone looks at baseball a different way. I look at it and I see like Ronald Acuna bat flipping. That makes me excited. That makes me hyped up. That keeps me engaged in the game, because baseball's a long game. Baseball's a boring game almost other than a very few amount of moments throughout a game. It's a very boring game. I can easily say that.
Right.
I'm an Orioles fan. I watched a lot of games last year. There were a lot of exciting moments and a lot of hellishly boring moments. Let me tell you. Especially on the pitching side. God, we were terrible.
Yeah.
But the point is that you can't take celebrating out of baseball. I mean, these players aren't robotic. They have emotions. Let them show it. Let Max Scherzer, foam from his mouth on the mound. Like, that's exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Let what's his name, Emmanuel Clase, get hyped up after throwing 102-mile-an-hour cutters in the ninth inning of a game. Like, there's no reason why players can't bat flip. But when it gets disrespectful,
like, so where's that line, Jack? Where's that line? Exactly. Because there's celebrating, and then there's rubbing your face in it, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff.
I think it comes to a point where if you're yelling at the pitcher, like if
Carlos Gomez, do you remember him?
Oh, how can I forget him?
Carlos
Oh my
Gomez,
god.
so
Him and
obnoxious.
McCann got into each other's faces. Oh my
Yep.
god, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see in that aspect, disrespect is subjective. So I guess the umpires of that game are gonna have to decide, like, hey, no, you can't yell at the other pitchers, you can't yell at the other position players. But at the same time, you can't just take emotion out of the game of baseball.
Right.
I don't think you can. I don't think you could possibly do that without sacrificing a huge part of your fan base.
Mhm.
Like, and the reason why I say that is if you look on TikTok and you're on like, and you get like a lot of baseball videos on your For You page, I'm sure you've seen a fair share of like baseball edits, because I
Mhm.
know I have. I have like a bunch of TikTok friends who are who have edit accounts, and they would have nothing to edit if there were no more bat flips in the game. There were no more like players hyping each other up in the game.
Right.
Like you can't take that out of baseball.
Mhm.
They're trying. I feel like they're trying to do that with football a little bit with unsportsmanlike conduct. Like celebrating
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And we're seeing how well that's going.
Right.
It's not. You can't do that with baseball. You just can't.
Yeah, I think that obviously, yeah, is a part of the game. And I think it's directed towards more of the hitters right now. And I don't think anybody really, bats an eye when Max Scherzer's on the mound saying, motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking strike you out. Like you said, foaming at the mouth, cursing, you could read his lips, and you're like, hey,
Yes, you can.
psychopath, like, okay.
Yeah,
And then
the two-eyed psycho,
when
or the
you
two
go
different
at
color-eyed psycho.
right, and when you go at each other, we saw Madison Bumgarner and Max Muncy either 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever it was. He said, "Go get the ball out of the ocean" after he was talking shit,
I
and
love that.
I think all that stuff is great for the game. Pitchers,
I agree.
celebrating. Yeah, if you can throw 102 miles an hour and you're blowing it past people, I would get hyped. Or if, then you get a hold of one and you hit it out. I think, you should be able to express emotions. And the thing I don't like is when it gets dangerous, when you're retaliating by throwing at people's heads.
No, I agree with you. If it comes to a point where you're retaliating and throwing at guys' heads, I mean, it's just that's too much. I
Yeah.
think when it comes to physically injuring players and getting your feelings that hurt, where you feel the need to throw and try and like cause players like physical injury, that goes too far. That's on the pitcher to decide if they want to do that or not.
Right.
I mean, if they get like thrown out of their rhythm and get that out of sync with themselves during a game because they're that rattled from a player, like celebrating, I think it comes to a pitcher problem, not necessarily a offensive player problem.
Mm.
But I don't know. I will say though, I do love brawls. I do love watching. I do love watching. Amir Garrett flying at the Pittsburgh Pirates dugout trying to fight everyone.
Yasiel Puig.
When Puig, exactly. And a few years ago, if you're an Oriole fan, you'll remember this pretty well. If you've been watching us for a little bit, Manny Machado and Yordan Ventura, may he rest in peace. When they went at it on the mound, like that was fight night at Camden Yards, ladies and gentlemen. That was so much fun. Oh my god! And then another Manny moment when he tried to throw the bat at Fernando Abad.
Yeah.
When he got hit in the leg, and he swung and missed and tried to throw the bat at the pitcher. Ended up throwing it at Donaldson.
Yeah, down the third baseline, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he stepped on he stepped on someone's heel at first base too. I forgot
Aguilar,
who that was.
Jesus Aguilar.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the playoffs. Yeah, a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, he's such a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love him as an Oriole fan, but my God, I didn't realize how big of an ass he was after he left.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
Yeah, a lot of those little moments, and I saw those because you'll see those like in the edits, like you said, and I've seen a lot with Carlos Gomez, things I don't remember, and then you see those and you're like, oh my god, I remember that, and just like what an asshole you are, dude, just like such a piece of shit for
And now he's retired. Gomez retired now, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Oy.
So. All right. Well, Jack, those were good points, good conversation. Where I want to know one thing. I want to see it is January. So what are some of your plans for this year? What are your goals for, Daily Dose of Baseball, or kind of what do you see yourself doing this year?
So for TikTok, I mean, I've made a video with some goals that I have. One of the goals that I have is I want to reach 30,000 followers, and I reached 10,000 in 5 or 6 months. And the reason why I gained so many followers in such a short time, I think, is because I've had like 8 or 9 videos blow up. You know, the first video I posted where I went when I realized that I should start posting every single day, gained like 145,000 views in 2 days, like 15,000 likes. It's now sitting at like, I think 200,000 views and 30,000 likes, give or take. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was one of my favorite videos of all time. I think that is my favorite video of all time. And I've gained a lot of followers, like 900, like 1,000 followers, like a couple times, just through like a couple videos. So I want to see if I can gain followers consistently from like, you know, not blowing up as much. Even though I do love when my videos get on the For You page.
Yeah.
I want to gain 30,000 followers, or I want to be at 30,000 followers by the end of 2022. That's my first goal. Even though my follower count isn't exactly a huge reason as to why I make videos. I make videos because I love it. You know, I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it. I don't do it for the views. I don't do it for the likes. I love interacting with other fans. I love interacting with comments. I make videos about other comments,
Right.
because I love seeing them. And I want to be more active on like Twitter and Instagram, you know, because I don't really have that many followers on either platform. So I'd love to learn what specifically I should post on there. I'm going to ask like Mets RSL, who's one of my friends, or Scotty. He's one of my good friends. I'm going to ask him what I should start posting about, because I have no idea what to post. And then my last goal, and I'm sure I have more in my head, I just can't think of any, is I want to be able to sit down on maybe like on a live stream or collaborate on a video with a professional baseball player, whether they're a minor leaguer, a major leaguer, playing overseas, or like independent baseball. I'd love to talk to a baseball player because I'm still a baseball fan at heart, you know, and I'd love to talk to a baseball player and just talk about the game of baseball with them and see how different their perspective of the game is to a baseball fan with my perspective. You know, I'd love to do that. That's a lifelong dream I've had. It's just to talk to a baseball player. So I now have a bit of a following. I don't want to get too big of a head when I say that, but I have a bit of a following now, and I'd just love to see where that goes. I really would. I think 2022 has a lot in store for a lot of baseball creators, and I'd hopefully like to be on that boat when everything takes off.
I agree. I think you are going to hit 30,000 followers by summer. It's only January.
By summer,
you
think so?
We're going to cut this clip up in August, and we're going to come back to this, and you're going to be like, oh my God, Pete, you were right, man. It only took till summer. It's going to be 30,000 by summer.
Just by summer, I'm at 11,000.
No, you're rapidly growing. You put out good content. So let everyone know where they can follow you. So they can follow you as well. So if they're listening to this or they're watching this.
All right. Well, to all those audio listeners, my name is Jack, or Daily Dose of Baseball on TikTok. It's at Daily Dose of Baseball. You can find me on Instagram, I believe, with the same username, and on Twitter is, I think my handle is the CEO of Sleep, because that was my original username on TikTok, and I changed it to Daily Dose of Baseball. So that's where you can find me. I post TikTok videos every single day, usually 2 to 3 a day. I go live occasionally. I mainly go live on Instagram though, so if you want to catch me on there, that's where you'll find me.
The CEO of Sleep found you.
Yes, sir.
So I couldn't find you before. All right, so I got you on there. Jack, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a educated, well-informed, opinionated baseball fan. I appreciate all the content that you put out. We'll continue to keep watching you and just watch you grow the rest of this year.
Thank you, brother. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
I hope you had a good time, and we can definitely do this again once you hit your goals a lot earlier than you think you did.
Well, I certainly hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time. Lost in the Shuffle.